lie.
You said the part you're playing is a little typecasting. Did you have body issues and control issues as a kid?
Definitely.
What happened? What'd you go through?
I went through an eating disorder, and the big thing for me that I found interesting about going through this and then coming into a world where I saw a lot of actresses doing it, and a lot of the press was about, oh, they want to be skinny, and there's a lot of pressure to be skinny, and I'm a very slim person. I was a dancer growing up, and it's not really, for me, when I went through it, about wanting to look thin. It was more about control. It was more about the frustration and rage that I felt as a young woman, and the only way I could show it to the world was by literally making my body into a living protest. But it's something that I have spoken about, that Lucy Hale has spoken about, because she went through a similar problem.
Do you have any hesitation about speaking out?
Of course I do, because it's often sensationalized, and that was my problem with when I spoke about it in 17 magazine. I knew I wasn't going to lie to them. You know, they asked me what I was like when I was 17, and I wasn't going to say I was great, because I wasn't. I was suffering from a mental disorder. But what I so often find is that it becomes about the facts. How much weight did you lose? How were you treated? Were you hospitalized? And that's not important to me. What is important is to talk about the feelings, to talk about the help that young girls and young men who have this problem can get if they find that they are suffering.
How did you defeat the problem?
Interventions on behalf of my friends, my teachers, my parents, and eventually I was a very smart girl, and I convinced them all that I would be fine and I could do it on my own, and I went away to Vassar College for a couple months and got sent home because I got too bad. That was when everybody kind of went into lockdown and said, you cannot lie to us again, you cannot leave again, you have to treat this, and it was...
But they couldn't force feed you.
No. I was speaking with somebody who was an alcoholic, and they said, you know, alcohol isn't the problem, it's the solution to the problem. And anorexia isn't the problem, it's the solution to the problem. So when somebody says, okay, I'm going to sit down with you and talk about what you're feeling, what's causing you to not want to eat, you start to begin to address the problem, and then you can get back into healthy eating habits.
And in talking about it, do you feel you're a role model? You help people? You think? You must.
I hope. I definitely hope. I mean, I've been put in a position of power, and I would hope to give positive influence rather than negative influence.
By the way, Pretty Little Liars, do the girls lie a lot?
Yeah, that's their problem. If they told the truth, everything would be great and sunny, and there'd be no conflict or drama, and we would have wrapped up the show in one season.
Is this common among teenage girls, do you think?
Lying? Well, the problem with our characters is they have to lie about a lot of really huge things, like murdering people.
Oh.
You know, and so I do think that it's a little bit more heavy. I don't know. With teenage girls, I would hope that there's a lot more truth-telling.
You said you always wanted to do theater. Is that what you want to do eventually?
I want to get back to it. I really miss it so much. It's where my heart is.
Live audience, nothing.
Live audience.
Growing Up in Hollywood, next. Don't go away. We're back with Troian Bellisario, one of the stars of Pretty Little Liars on ABC Family, extended now for 2 years, an enormous hit. You grew up in Hollywood. Your father, Donald Bellisario, writer, director, producer, created such hits as Magnum P.I., NCIS, Jag, Quantum Leap. Your mother, Deborah Pratt, a writer, actor, and producer. You were almost automatically going into the business, right?
Well, I was pretty much born on a soundstage, and for me, the question became, if this is my world, what space will I occupy in it?
Well, you have brothers and sisters?
I do, and many of them are actors, editors, production.
How many do you have?
I'm one of 9.
9?
Yes.
Catholic or Mormon?
My father's Catholic. Yeah, good guess. But he was remarried several times, so I really only have one full brother, and then the rest are step and half siblings.
All close?
We're all very close. The older siblings grew up in a very different world than we did, so it's a whole range of personalities and characters.
They didn't grow up in a Hollywood world?
No, they grew up in a trailer park in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
So very, very different.
What was it like as a child of show business here? The general image people would have is affected, spoiled.
I definitely was very fortunate to be born into a wealthy family, but my father he had a job to do. You know, I wasn't allowed to go up and talk to him until he was done writing. And then when we talked about his show, it was a job. There weren't lavish parties. I wasn't going out and getting, you know, messed up at a young age because I wanted to be as successful and hardworking as my father and mother.
And tell me about your boyfriend, who I know.
Yes, you do.
Patrick Adams, right?
Patrick Adams.
Of Suits.
Of Suits, yes.
How did you meet him? How did that all happen?
We went to USC, but at different times. And I met him over the course of many different occasions, one of which he gave me the Jack Nicholson Award for acting because he had won it when he went to USC. But we really met when I was doing that play, Equivocation at the Geffen Playhouse. And we did the play together, and our characters fell in love, and so did we.
And you have a date?
A date for a wedding? No, because we live in two separate cities, and we don't quite know how to plan a wedding 3,000 miles apart yet.
He's in New York?
He's in Toronto. They shoot in Toronto.
How do you juggle it then?
Carefully.
A lot of flights.
A lot of flights. We both spend so much time on airplanes, but it's worth it. Our weekends, you know, when we can, are spent together, and when we can't, we try to catch up as much as we can.
Well, you're both so career-oriented. Do you see children in the future?
Well, we've definitely, you know, I've only got 2 more years of my show, and I don't know how long his show's going on, but I definitely want a family. I mean, I was raised in a huge family. I think family is very important to us. There's a lot that we both want to accomplish before we do that, but I do know all of our friends are having kids, and it makes us a little bit envious.
What about working in the business has changed since you grew up in it?
You know, I don't know if I could really answer that, because for me, I watched my parents and their work in the industry, and I really wasn't allowed to leave school. Finishing school is a really important thing to my family, and they told me I had to finish college. So even when I was acting growing up, it was only done on winter or summer breaks. So my first experience of real work was when I graduated college, and it's been my experience ever since. So maybe the only thing I could say to that is Twitter, things like social media, and this sort of...
That wasn't there when you were...
It wasn't there, you know, and there was this sort of mystery and this privacy that we loved about our greatest actors, that we didn't know who they were so they could occupy these roles that were totally different. And now we seem to be in this world where it's like, I want to know everything about you. I want to know what your natural hair color is, how your left shoulder twitches. And then when you play somebody completely different, they go, that's not you. I don't believe it. So I don't love that aspect.
Privacy's gone.
Privacy's gone. But maybe we can get it back.
How?
It's been a learning experience, especially for Patrick and I being on shows. It's been a learning experience about how much of our lives we share. We both have social media. We both love taking pictures on Instagram. And it's been about when that first came out, we were using it just like everybody else, just like our friends, taking pictures of everything, except I was getting 100,000 comments from 2.5 million followers, and they were getting 30 comments from their 200 followers.
I have teenage boys.
You do?
Yeah, 15 and 14.
Okay.
And I find something strange. And you're an educated, bright 28-year-old
Thank
who
you.
was a teen, grew up in the business. They're growing up in the business, and
Yeah.
they're both athletes. They don't talk.
They don't talk. They sit on their phones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened to conversation?
Well, people are really bad at it these days. I mean, it's a muscle that we're not engaging. And I think it's leading to a lot of really scary things, like a lot of young people are resorting to violence to get out the aggression that they feel they can't put into words and into confrontations as a human face-to-face conflict.
So that doesn't say much for tomorrow, does it?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, it's going to get better. How's it going to get better if they grow up texting?
Isn't there also a resurgence of analog? You know, I know my friends and I are kind of returning to records. We're returning to a farm to table, you know, reading. I want to pick up a book. I want to smell the pages. I don't want a Kindle. Sorry, Kindle. But there is this sort of nostalgia for what came before us and what we're missing out on.
I hope you're right.
Me too.
My guest is the wonderful Troian Bellisario. We learned a lot about Troy. We're going to find out who's the first boy ever kissed her.
Oh, my God.
Well, he remembers his name.
I hope they do.